Hello, fellow Daz Studio enthusiasts. This is Not From This World, and I want to welcome you to my tutorial on Geoshells and Grafts. Before we get started, I want to just thank everyone for subscribing and commenting. My channel is growing a little bit, and I really appreciate that. I think it's pretty fun to see new subscribers and comments, so thank you very much. Now, today I want to talk about geoshells and grafts. Now, these two items are things we can add to our character to give them more detail. And so I have my Milica character here, and she's going to help us demonstrate a geoshell. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to talk a little bit about grafts and adding a graft onto your character as well. Now, I am going to use two examples here. And the first example is going to be from Daz Studio. And it's a cool geoshell that adds skin effects. It's going to add dirt to the skin of our character. Now, if you remember, I created a video for you a while back where I did this without any kind of a geoshell. I just added some dirt to Milica's legs when she was at the beach. So you don't have to have geoshells, but geoshells are super cool and make your life a little bit easier, perhaps, than going through the process of trying to create some dirt on your own. So this geoshell is going to add a layer to the skin of Milica. So it actually doesn't change her textures at all. It adds a very thin layer just above her textures, and then we add whatever dirt or feature we want to that geoshell. I also need to shout out another product here that we're going to demonstrate that is going to add a graft of skin moisture. So I'm going to show you this graft, which is called Ultimate Skin Moisture. Now, what a graft does is it adds an overlay of certain items like this moisture, or items like genitalia to your character, and it comes in really handy. So we're going to look at both of these, and I'm going to show you on Milica how these work. So the first thing that we're going to do is let's add some dirt to Milica. Okay, when I open up the dirt geoshell, we're going to see that it has all of these different kinds of shells. So it has, it looks like 5 shells, and then it has some offset layers. So to get this to work, what we have to do is we have to select our character, and then you just select one of your shells. Now, these are programmed to have some dirt already in place on the geoshell. So you can see here, I've just added dirt all over Milica. Alright, so you can add multiple shells and then change them. So if you look under the dirt, we've got these options. So we can have different colors, different opacities, the light, you can have light dirt, partial dirt, and see, you can scroll through and just play around with all of these different options. So we can mix and match. So for example, let's just select Milica. Let's go back to our dirt we'll put one shell on her. And then I'm going to select that shell. It's called FX Layer 1. And then I can go into different options. And I can add. So see, I just made her a lot more dirty. And I can also select her, and we can add a second layer. And that second layer, we can change it as well. So let's just, let's add some extra, maybe to her legs. Let's see, limbs. All right, so you can see that we can really change the textures of our character with this dirt. It's pretty darn cool. Okay, one thing that you probably have noticed is that the geoshell works really well, except if we look down here in her pubic region, the geoshell did not work. And this is because I have a graft added to my character that gives her genitalia. And I have a genitalia called Golden Palace installed on Milica. So when I add this geoshell to Milica, it conflicts with the geoshell mapping of the graft of her genitalia. And if you look in your scene tab, you're going to see that we've got two shells. We have two geoshells. We have this FX layer geoshell, and then my genitalia, the Golden Palace, has its own shell as well. Now, when we select Golden Palace, you're going to have the tabs that you click to select it onto your character, and then you have this tab that says Shell Fix. We're going to have to first use that. So what we do is we select our Golden Palace shell, and then we hit the control button and then click the geoshell of the dirt called FX Layer 1, and then we just tap this Shell Fix. Now what that's done is it's blended the two shells together, I suppose, so that they are compatible. The problem that we have is that all of Milica's body is dirty, but her genitalia area is clean. And so we've got to figure out how to make it dirty as well. What we have to do is kind of a set of steps, and we can fix this clean area of her abdomen. So the first thing that we want to do to add the textures of the geoshell to our genitalia geoshell is we want to select the dirt geoshell, and then under the surface tab we're going to click it, and we're going to take our FX layer 1 and drop it down. And when we drop it down, you're going to notice that the Golden Palace geoshells are right here. So what we have to do is we have to select them. Then we have to go into our content library, and we're going to drop down in My Daz Studio all the way down to where it says Shader Presets. We're going to select the Shader Presets, select iRay, and then go to Daz Uber. And once we have that with our Golden Palace selected under the FX layer, we're going to hit Uber Base. Just double click on that. Then we're going to scroll down go to torso, right click and hit copy selected surfaces. Now we're going to go back up to the Golden Palace, highlight the 4, right click and hit paste, and boom, did you see that we now have dirty genitalia? That sounds bad, but that's what we have. So now the geoshell is correct in showing these dirt layers throughout all of Milika's body. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's how we can use the geoshell. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to clear this out. So if I don't want those geoshells anymore, it's really easy to get rid of them. Just click on it, right click, and just hit delete. And now Milika's back to being her cute little self. She's not dirty anymore. Now, what I want to do next is show you this graft of skin moisture. And if you buy this from Renderotica, you're going to get the ultimate skin moisture, and then it gives you some directions. So it says step 1, it recommends that you save your file so that in case something gets corrupted, you still have the correct textures for your skin. Step 2, it says select your character and use the USM shell female icon. Alright, so we're going to do that. I'm going to select my Milika character, and then I'm just going to select this. Alright, now you see how her skin got kind of pale? That is that layer I was talking about. So what this has done, this graft has added a layer to her texture. Then step 3 here, it says go to your scene tab and select Ultimate Moisture Shell. It will be connected to your figure. So just like always, we're going to scroll down until we find that Ultimate Moisture Shell. We're going to select it. It says now we can choose what kind of moisture we want. So under the Ultimate Skin Moisture, we have a bunch of materials. So it says soaking wet or sweaty. So let's, for the sake of being able to see this really well, let's choose a soaking wet. So there's various choices that we have. So it just says, you know, different types of wetness. So with my Ultimate Moisture Shell selected, I'm just going to click on one of these. Let's do one that's really wet so that you can see it really well. Okay, so I've added this, and it's probably going to be pretty difficult to see. You can see a little bit, but when we render, you should really be able to see it. So if I go to iRay, let's check out what this looks like. Wow. Okay, so you can see she's really wet. The water is not a geoshell. It's a graft. So we don't have this problem down here in her pubic region that we had with the dirt. So she is completely covered in water. These geoshells and grafts are awesome. And of course, if I want to change this, I just need to make sure that I have my Ultimate Moisture Shell selected. And then I can choose different ones. Like if I want to go to sweaty, alright, I can select the sweaty, and we're going to change it. Alright, so see, she's a little bit different now. She doesn't have quite as much moisture on her. Alright, so as always, let's go to a scene and let's apply this to something we can actually render. Okay, so I've opened up a scene here, and we've got Milika, with some of her friends having a tug of war at the beach. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add some dirt and moisture to our characters before we render to make everything look better. Okay, so we're going to start with our girls, and we're going to add some dirt to the girls because they're at the beach having a tug of war, so they're going to get dirty. So I'm going to select Milica, and I'm going to go to my dirt effects, and I'm going to choose one of the shells, so just shell 1. And you can see we get the same thing going on where I've got Milica with a nice dirty texture, but her genital region is not correct. So remember, the first thing I have to do is I'm going to have to go to my scene tab, select my Golden Palace genital shell with the FX layer shell. I'm going to have to come up to where Golden Palace is, select Golden Palace, and hit this shell fix. All right. Now that fixed the shell to match our 2 geoshells, the texture, but see, notice how that area is not dirty. So I have to make that dirty by selecting the FX layer. That's our geoshell. Coming down to the surface tab under the FX layer, I have to select my Golden Palace genitals. Then I have to, remember, come up to my DAZ 3D library, scroll down until we find the shader presets, go to iRay, DAZ Uber, select the Uber base, just double click it. Then in my FX layer, I've got to drop down to torso, right click, hit copy selected surfaces. Then I've got to come back up to the Golden Palace, select all 4, right click, and then hit paste. And then I've got it fixed. All right, so next let's choose one of her friends. So I'm going to double click on one of her friends. We're going to go back down to the dirt. All right, so here's the dirt add-on. I'm going to select a shell for her. And if you notice, I've got that same issue, of course, with her genitals. So we're going to do the same thing. She's good. All right, last girl. We're just going to select her. This is Bilyana. I think Bilyana is Milica's younger sister. They just look very similar. All right, so I'm going to select her, go to my skin effects, go to dirt, add the shell. And I've got the same story with Bilyana. Okay, so I have my girls all ready to go. We can add some moisture to them if we like. So I'm going to go to my ultimate skin. Let's add a little bit of moisture. I mean, they're at the beach. They should be a little wet. So with Milica, I just selected the ultimate moisture shell. I'm going to select it. And then let's get, I don't know, do we want her sweaty or soaking wet? Let's choose sweaty. I'm just going to choose one of the sweaties. All right. Same with our second girl. We could choose a different one for her. All right. And then Bilyana. Okay. Now I do have a male character that they are having a tug of war with. And we can do the same things with him. So if I select him, I think with him I'm just going to do some moisture. So let's add the moisture to him. I believe my dirt effects are only for Gen 8 females. I'll have to check, but I think that's only for those Genesis 8s. So we're not going to try and make him dirty. We'll just make him a little sweaty. All right, now let's get to the camera that we want. And I'm going to set up the scene. And I've got a decal in the center here that you don't see until we render. It's a mud pit, and let's get rendering. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, everyone, so this is an example of how to use geoshells and scripts. I hope this helped you. This is kind of a fun render, so I created a little bit of dirt getting kicked up, and looks like the girls are just about ready to get pulled into that mud. There are ways that you can create geoshells if you don't want to buy them. I'm saving that for another tutorial. I'll show you a little bit in the future on how we can create our own geoshells. But if you don't have the time, or you just don't want to, purchasing these geoshells and scripts are really beneficial. And as you can see, they really add a lot to our scene. This picture would look a lot different if all of our characters were really clean and dry. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hit that like button, give me a comment or two, and don't forget to subscribe. Take care, and I'll see you next time.